There we go. Okay, so it's being recorded. Good evening. Welcome all of you who've tuned in so far this evening, and perhaps many more of you will be coming in. Welcome to Ask Spirit Anything. I hope you have your questions. For those of you who have been here before, you know how I go into trance. I'm going to ask again, if a couple of you would unmute yourself as we say the Our Father, that would be helpful for sustaining the prayer while I go into trance, because I'm going to slowly lose my voice or become more quiet as Juana takes over. And I would also appreciate leaving some of your microphones unmuted. I see some of you have done that. Thank you very much. So that you remain unmuted through the ohms, and then I'll ask you to mute yourself except for asking questions. And any question is game. Is there anything else I need, Bob? No. Okay, so let's start the process of me going into trance. I'll start with my prayer. Dear Lord, we welcome in your spirits in this evening as we seek information and understanding. And we thank them for their attendance and for their guidance and the help that we will receive in this evening. Amen. We surround ourselves with the white light of truth. Nothing but that which is of the truth or for our good shall approach us. For we are children of God, and he will protect us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth
as it is in heaven.
Give us
this day
daily
our
bread,
daily bread,
and
and forgive us our trespasses,
as
we forgive those
who
who trespass against us.
and lead us
Not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
And glory forever. Amen.
Amen.
Everybody, how is everybody this evening?
Very well.
Everybody good?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. I'm glad you're all well, and thank you so much for coming this evening. I'll be ready to bring in Monkar in just a moment, but for the moment, I'm going to get you all healers. One moment, please. Okay, I've lined up healers so that there is a healer with each of you in your own homes. And if you want to send healing to anyone in particular, you have only to ask them to send the healing also, not just to you, to the persons that you name. We'll be happy to do so for the evening while we are in session together. So it's nice to have you here in this evening. Now I will get Ronkar. One moment, please. And remember, there are other spirits that are available for speaking who well, they all belong to the medium, I know that, but you can ask for Sister Constance if you have a relationship question, but Ronkar's good for that too. And you can ask for Dr. Benjamin, and if it is a medical type problem, and you can do those individuals if you would wish to talk to them instead of Ronkar. But Ronkar is great. He can answer everything. So I'm going to say, I'll talk to you later tonight, and I'm getting Ronkar. One moment. Good evening. It is Iron Carr. It is my pleasure to be with you in this evening. It is customary to start with a slight little talk. And for those of you who may have listened in on the homily that was given by the medium this past Sunday, you are aware that the talk was about having a great day and observing your day and being in the moment. And I would like to amplify that just a bit more, because being in the moment is really quite simple. It is not thinking about anything that happened in your past, and it is about not thinking about the future when you are too busy doing other things, to put your full attention upon what you are doing. Now, this does not require a superhuman effort. It really just requires that you don't spend your time thinking about those things that happened in the past. And yes, it is natural and even good for you to think about the future and what plans you would like to make and what you would like to do. But being in the moment is helpful to yourself because for two main reasons. It stops you from reliving the past, which you cannot change, and which, since you frequently choose to think about things that were difficult for you or disappointed you or made you unhappy, you can release that unhappiness. You can release the frustration or wherever else you were going through, the emotions that were connected with some of those past memories. And you can, when it comes to the future, you have a tendency to worry, that is the term, to think about things that might possibly happen in the future. And a good percentage of your thought goes to things you don't want to have happen. Now, you already know there is a metaphysical law which says that which you think about is what you attract to yourself. And that is a very important law because it works all the time extremely well. If you spend your time thinking about the things you do not want to have in your life, well, unfortunately, you will attract those things to yourself because your mind is continually thinking about this thing that you actually do not want. And so it is about thinking even about things that you did not like that happened to you in the past. If you continue to dwell on them, not only does it make you unhappy in the moment, in the now, drudging up things that cannot change any longer, and as they continue to make you unhappy, you are missing out on enjoying whatever is going on in your life at the current time, which could be something that you really like or that you enjoy. If your mind keeps going back to the past to think about something that caused you pain or suffering, disappointments, then you are spoiling your present. And the present is what you have. The present is the most important thing in your life. It is the only thing you have control over. You can't change anything that happened in the past. You can't make something happen in the future that you have no power over right at the moment. But in the now, in the moment, you have the choice. You are in control. You can decide, am I enjoying this moment? And if you are, enjoy it. If you say, no, I don't like this, then you have the power to change it here and now. In the moment, you can say, I'm not going to be in this conversation any longer. I think I will terminate this relationship, or I will simply move to a different area for the time being. You have control of the now. You don't have control of the past, and you are not yet in control of your future. Now, there are so many things I can reiterate or I can iterate about being in control of your future. Creating plans and thinking about things in such a way that you can stimulate the future that you want to experience. But I do not wish to go into them at this time because it is a bit time consuming. If someone wants to know how to do that, then I will be happy to explain it as an answer. Otherwise, it will be put off for another lecture at another time. So, have you brought questions with you in this evening? Who would like to ask the first question? Just unmute yourself and fire away. Everyone waits for someone else for that first question. But please, someone speak up.
Ronkar, this is Elizabeth. I was just wondering, are there repercussions in the afterlife for those people who take their own life either on purpose or by accident?
Well, there are things that carry over, so to speak, as you transition into the afterlife. For many people, since taking your own life usually demands that you are intensely emotional, you have become depressed, you are thinking nothing but sorrowful thoughts and how life is not good, and you are thinking things like you might just as well not be alive, for nothing is going good in your life. And these negative thoughts, when you transition, unfortunately come with you. When you are dying a natural death due to disease or other illness, there is a slow preparation and a slow acceptance of what is coming. And as a result, you are at peace when you make that transition. When you kill yourself, you are very distraught. You are not thinking clearly, and you are emotionally involved in negative feelings. And this being distraught carries over with you into the afterlife. And so, since almost everyone does not wish to be alive, they, in a sense, actively avoid awakening into spirit life. And as a result, they cannot immediately enjoy the situation that being fully in spirit brings and is. It is very difficult to explain. But when you are in spirit, there is a great unity. You are all one together, and you are all part of God and aware of your oneness with the God power. And as you may have been taught, this brings supreme happiness. Of course, we do not experience emotions in the same way, since emotions belong to the body. But there is a bliss, a contentment, it is perhaps intellectual, but it does not matter what it is. You are contented, you are happy, everything is good. You are aware of yourself as an individual, but you are also aware that you are connected to every other individual in the spirit world. You have family members and friends around you because they have been with you for however long, as parents or family members or friends that have transitioned before you. They are there waiting for you, and you can feel the unity and the love that has always existed. And so when you kill yourself and predetermine your transition, you do send yourself into a state which is not compatible with being in spirit. And this takes some time. I cannot use a better word than time to explain that there is this interval in which there is, I will say, no awareness of life. It is a bit of a zombie-like state. So it takes a while for that state to wear off before you can embrace the fullness of spirit life. It is very difficult to explain, but yes, there are consequences, but it is not as if you might have been taught that by taking your own life, you go to hell, because there is no such thing as hell. Hell is something that you could quite easily impose upon yourself by knowing that there is no afterlife, by knowing that there is no God. You could isolate yourself. Similarly, do you understand? If you have a strong belief in something, sometimes that carries over into spirit and prevents you from being fully aware as an individual.
I see. Yes, I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there other questions?
So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what's going on with these riots and such, and are things going to change?
Of course they are changing. Nothing stays the same, and you know that already. So when you ask a question such as that, it just indicates that you feel a little bit despair over the situation, that maybe it will not change this time, but things do not stay the same. Have you ever been in a situation on the physical plane where everything remained the same, whether it was wonderfully good or whether it was a horrible situation that you couldn't stand? It does always end, and there is always change. So what you are experiencing at the moment is, while it is distasteful and it is threatening and scary for most individuals, because most of you have enjoyed your life and experienced the great freedom of being in the United States and having quite a bit of control and governance over the life that you live. You wonder whether you will be able to actually continue to or revert to that point in time where you feel good and safe and free and confident. And these riots may continue for a short time longer until they decide to take action to punish the offenders more than they have at this point in time. For the most part, there is not the army, not even the police force is fully ready to deal with these type of violent people, because the situation is extremely violent. Violent people always have an edge for a short time in many altercations. The one who is most violent is the one who is winning at the moment. Very often that is true. That is because he is intimidating to others. They are afraid to offend him. They are afraid for their own life. And so violence has its place for those people who wish to intimidate others and try to get their way through intimidation. So it is going to take some period of time, of which I cannot give you a definite period of time, but it's going to take some time for all your governors or your mayors in which places is this violence taking place, to step up and say enough is enough. For when they say enough is enough, and they send the proper, strong, well-armed forces against these individuals, then the tide will turn. And those individuals will cease to be violent because they do not want to be beat up. They do not want to go to jail. They do not want to be killed. And while there will be some that will continue to act, these numbers will begin to fall away. Now, you have looked in other cities, and perhaps you can remember other times there has been violence, and it always ends. Unfortunately, it can take some time, and many people can be deprived of property. There is a lot of property destruction. Many people will be injured, and some people will lose their lives, as there has already happened. And this is a very sad thing when this happens. And so it is difficult to wait for the authorities to take the action they need. When they step up, when they combat this force with likely force and more force, then the violence will subside, and then people will do their best to put their lives back together after the destruction of their property or situations. It is temporary. It will take longer than anyone wants it to take, for you would all like it to be behind you tomorrow and not happening anymore. But unfortunately, the right circumstances are not present at the moment, and your mayors, your governors, the governments at all levels are not taking the actions that they need to suppress the violence. Are there other questions?
Yeah, besides the obvious answer of the killing of the poor fellow that was killed by the police officer outright, it's very, very clear. And it's a very, very sad situation. It indicates, some problems, I guess, with still racial tensions and racism that's inherent. Besides that, what's the motivation here for these, number one, the protests, and number two, the violence? I think there might be even different motivations involved.
There are many people protesting. I think some of the protests were not so much over the death of the individual as they were the result of some of the frustration that has been accumulating due to the lockdown orders of the governments, not allowing people to go about their business. When people are productively employed, working, doing the things that benefit themselves, they don't seek to go out and cause destruction. They want to keep what they've got. And so they continue to work, to earn money, to save money, to spend money, to have the best life they can have. That is what most people want. So there is quite a bit of pent-up frustration. And then people begin to invent imaginary grievances. Besides the fact that they have been deprived of their work and their ability to earn money and forced to endure staying inside and not socializing, these people then begin to say that, oh, this death of this man is demonstrative of a gross injustice that is everywhere. And while once upon a time, this may have been a gross injustice that is everywhere, in general, this is not true, but people will adopt that attitude because it is an excuse to vent their frustration over other things. As anyone who has experienced violence from family members or friends or nearby people, they are aware. If you have experienced this, you are aware that it was probably not what you said or you did or what someone else said or did in the situation that caused it to erupt into a violence that was taken out on someone else or on someone else's property or even an animal. For many people take out their frustrations on animals, their pets. You think that they have chosen to have these animals as their pets, supposedly because they like this. And that yet people will inflict violence upon animals and pets because they are frustrated in other areas. This is a common thing. People, when they are unhappy, will find something to get angry at. It is an excuse, a diversion from their primary problem, which they probably feel they cannot solve themselves. And certainly millions of people have been forced into unemployment because the governors have said in their states that everyone must stay socially distanced, that you cannot open the business because you might infect someone. You must do this. And so many people have been forced into a situation which leaves them very unhappy, very uncertain of their futures. And as a result, tempers can be raised easily and violence can erupt easily. Are there other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
There was material given by Seth through Jane Roberts about the individual and mass events. And the material imparted information that when many people choose to die together, it is often a form of protest. And I'm wondering if this may be true with this pandemic of COVID, what purpose does it serve for all of these who are dying not to state the conditions that they are protesting against?
So what you are saying, or to understand your question properly, you are comparing the deaths that have occurred from the COVID virus as to those situations, other situations in which there have been large numbers of people who died at the same time. Is that what you were saying?
Yes, well, in this Seth material, that was what was indicated, that when there are large, masses of people that died together, and he didn't specify the Spanish flu or any particular illness, but I found it interesting that he said it is often a statement of protest against societal conditions or perhaps environmental conditions. But if these, and also that made me feel better that there may be some purpose to all these people dying, but I'm wondering, how would their protest be registered in society or across the world if no one voices, what the difference of opinion was that they held?
I understand your question. It is a bit difficult as I reflect on some of the mass deaths that have occurred. This is certainly not, it is not quite correct. If you give me just a moment, let me, I would like to connect with the Seth people so that I can understand more what they were saying. One moment, please.
Yes.
I'm sorry for the delay. And I am still not clear on what was trying to be expressed, but I am aware of your concern that these deaths should not go unnoticed. Certainly, if you would think of, there have been many times throughout history where there have been a slaughtering of many people. Some of these have been deliberate. Some of these things also have occurred because of natural things that happen on the earth. Now, when we are talking about something like the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, which caused the death for many, many people because of their proximity to the volcano, the dust that ran down on them, the lava that engulfed whole towns, that these things, when they are from natural causes, is a lot of deaths. And while you are, if this is what you are referring to, I just need you also to remember that death is naturally a part of life. From the time you were born, you are heading towards your death.
Yes, I don't have a problem with death since there is none. But we, of course, Seth always looked past any physical causes of deaths, injuries to the body. He's calling us to look past and to see that each individual in these mass deaths chose at that time to die. So it wouldn't matter whether it was from lava or if it was from the particular type of illness. I don't think mattered so much, but to recall there's always a spiritual and psychological component involved.
Yes. And something along with the slaughter of all the Jews by Hitler in
Yes.
World War II, that kind of a thing. Yes, these people have allowed their incarnation to be at this time period, knowing that this is a likely result of this incarnation. And I think that it is not a general protest where everyone is united in the reason they allow this, or to be born at this time to come into a situation in which they will be killed due to this, that, or the other thing. There are many individual reasons, and it does not matter whether anyone else knows them. Certainly in the mass extermination of Jewish individuals, this was perhaps done as a way to indicate that this type of thing should never, ever be done again. And there were people willing to participate as the martyrs. In early Christian time, there were many martyrs. You can assume that these people chose to be Christian, be incarnate, and chose to be Christian because of the demonstration of their faith and perhaps the message to others. We cannot always comprehend why someone would choose to come into a situation in which there is great physical danger to themselves and almost a certain knowledge that they will die either in an early age or a later age. It does not matter. It is all part of karma, if you wish, and reincarnation. It is the lesson that they are experiencing, that they are going through, that they choose for their own individual purpose. So there is no general message. In general, there is no general message to the death of many people that happened at the same time. Certainly, if you look at World War II, if you look at World War I, if you look at the Civil War, any time that nations have gone to war, where there are deaths among the civilian populations, massacres, and deaths among all the soldiers, these things, the message simply should be and is that this is not productive. It does not help to murder off thousands of people each year or in a campaign for whatever reason. The differences between the North and the South, each one having its own ideas of what it was wishing to fight for and die for. There is the message there. Each of them had chose to have a reason that they felt was good for themselves. You must look at all human behavior and know that everyone chooses what is best for themselves at all times, or what they think is best for themselves. So that will choose to act in a manner that they think benefits themselves in some way. And while it may be hard for others from the outside to look at that and say, how was that beneficial?
Right. And yes, Seth had mentioned the individual reasons as well as the group reasons. But he did use that word protest, that along with having individual reasons for people that each person has when they go en masse into a transition from this earth, that they have the group, and the word used was protest. So I guess I will just need to read some more of that material to try to
Well,
understand it.
perhaps you might just look at it as being, there have been some individuals which have chosen to come back into these situations, not necessarily as a protest. I do not know why that word was used, remembering that it is sometimes difficult to um, use correct words to
Yeah.
to give voice to particular ideas. Vocabularies are sometimes difficult for those of us in spirit, but there have been also people who have chosen to come back and die in these type of mass situations as almost a group atonement for something that was done in the past. So where they might have been those who were the slaughterers, and so they come back to be slaughtered as a direct balance from things that have happened in the past. And in
Well,
this way, there is a total balance.
yes. Well, these are, well, I think very valid, the instances you're citing. It would be quite interesting and perhaps good for the human race to know if there was an actual consensus among many of them about conditions, and that they did, choose to make a statement about by leaving, along with their individual reasons as well. We may never know, but in this case, it would be interesting and perhaps beneficial for us to know if in this if code in the COVID deaths, if there is a some kind of agreement on most of their parts, and a
Yes,
statement.
but I don't think it would, it is my observation that it would not make much of an impression on the majority of people, and that killing yourself or choosing to die for, as in protest for something, is not often, you do not often get your message across. There have been times where Buddhists used to do self-immolation.
Mhm.
There were protests against things that were going on. And Gandhi once said, well, at least there was only one of them, and it was something they chose themselves to express. So that it is not always beneficial to do protests in such a way. Kill yourself. Most people will not recognize what your sacrifice of your own life was all about. And it is probably more a delusional aspect of an individual who thinks by sacrificing their own death, they can cause massive change in their own, in the world or the area around them. Most people, it is just not an effective way of protesting. And you are
That makes
correct.
sense.
And you are correct in your observation. It would be much nicer if it could be effective, but it doesn't appear to be.
Well, thank you for your input.
You are most welcome. Are there other questions?
Hello.
This is Donna.
Yes, it is. Before, when you stopped and consulted something, you called it Seth, I believe.
Yes, Seth.
What is that?
Seth was a spirit that was channeled, and there are many books that have been channeled. They are referred to as the Seth books.
Oh,
The name Seth, S-E-T-H.
okay. All righty. I
It
was
was
just
channeled
wondering.
quite a while ago.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. So I was attempting to communicate with Seth to find out precisely what he meant by those words, but was not able to effectively find out that information. Are there other questions?
Well,
So-
go ahead.
So let me ask another question if nobody else is. Drug overdoses, accidental drug overdoses, because of some really bad drugs, are they the same as a suicide?
There would be a great deal of similarity there, but it is not, if it is truly accidental, and many of the overdoses are, those people are usually seeking to escape a situation or their lives for just the moment or the time. They are seeking to feel either nothing or less, or usually they are in distress, but some of them merely have acquired an addiction, which is at two levels, both the physical body and the mental aspect of the individual is what is addicted to the change in thinking or the change in state of your mind when you take a drug such as an opiate. Now, they were originally designed, or they were primarily used to bring out relief from pain, but they cease to be effective after a great deal of use, and as a result, people often begin to take more, and that is when accidental overdoses can occur. And unfortunately, the addiction process sets up someone to increase their pain when they have not had the drug, their dependency on the drug. So when a person who has an accidental overdose transitions during their overdose, the body can no longer sustain itself and the person dies, that is a different situation than one who is chosen in despair to kill themselves, as these individuals did not mean to kill themselves. They will come out of this whole situation and into spirit world much easier than a person who dies in despair. They may be surprised at the afterlife, but they will then go through the life review and look at their lives. And of course, there are various reasons why people are addicted to drugs, and they will come to evaluate that themselves. In general, yes, there is a very large difference between someone who deliberately kills himself and someone who accidentally kills himself. Those who accidentally kill themselves usually transition as easily as someone who dies naturally. Let us say, an automobile accident. If abruptly someone is in an automobile accident, it is still a surprise to find yourself in the afterlife as spirit. Someone who has taken a drug overdose is pretty much the same, surprised to find himself there. And he has, of course, a life review, which is just can be very daunting, especially for someone who has abused their body, allowed to avoid life, so to speak, by taking drugs for themselves. For that is what they have been doing. For those who have been addicted to drugs of one type or another over many years, they have been avoiding life and what their life could be. And they are seeking only to continue that avoidance. So the life review is a bit difficult for these individuals. Very disappointing, because they came here for a different purpose, not to avoid the life, but to embrace it and to accomplish something else. So when they go into their life review, it is difficult for them, where they realize their failure.
I have a scenario that would be of interest in, well, not an interest in, but I've thought about. We see these movies where there's secret agents or what have you, they get captured by the enemy, and their way out is to take a cyanide pill so that they commit suicide. So their motivation for taking that pill would be either to avoid torture or extreme pain, or to not divulge any information that might harm others, which is another possible motivation. So in one sense, that's a deliberate suicide, but is it really the same?
No, you are right. There are differences. Does it make it any better to end your life? I would say not, but the situation is, in a sense, very understandable that these people have chosen to do this in this way, because it is what is perhaps serves what they are trying to achieve in their dedication to their cause. Let us put it that way. And so this would be more like a normal death than a suicide.
The same, and not to dwell on this topic, but as long as we're here, I think sometimes of the poor people in the World Trade Center who, ended up jumping to their death, which of course was a choice. I guess they saw the inevitable was coming, so that they decided, well, I might as well end it this way as opposed to the other way. Is that a subtle choice that they've made there?
Yes, but there again, it is more similar to what you were just speaking of. It is not that any of those people who jumped to their death was trying to kill themselves in that particular way. There was fear of what was happening. And many of them, yes, made a choice that I will die. I'd rather die trying to be free in this way. There was always the hope that they would land and somehow not be killed upon impact. There is always the understanding that, or the thought that I'm going to die on the way down before I hit the ground, so nothing is going to affect me. It seems like a more painless way than being burned to death in a fire, because most of them did not realize that the building would collapse long before they would have been asphyxiated, or they were being asphyxiated because there was too much smoke. Those actions were just people in the process of already dying, trying to alter the vehicle by which they died. And so, and this might be a question continued to Nancy's question about, is there a purpose in their death? But is there a purpose in the death? I do not know. Certainly those who were there each had an individual reason for incarnating and being in that situation that they were in at that time. That before they incarnated, it may have been a known circumstance that would probably happen. And they were willing to participate in this situation for whatever personal reasons they had.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. It is a bit natural to try to speak of the spirit world and what happens when you transition with such a program as you have at this point in time. Ask Spirit anything, because there is curiosity. Are there other questions?
I finally made it. Yep, I got a question.
Okay, this must be Robin.
Yes, I'm late. Sorry, I got called into work to help a coworker. So anyway, on this topic as well, because there's different spins to everything, but I was told that someone transitioned and they were able to trace his soul aspect, I guess, and he's off onto another world. And we've talked about this before, that I have an alien guardian angel, if you will. And I said, well, I must have came from there, or how could an alien be attracted to this one single human on planet Earth, you know? And your response, I don't know when it was that my incarnations were of this earth, but I still don't subscribe to that, because I have all the learning that I have undertaken over the years is that we are all extraterrestrials, and that our seed, you know, aspects that make up humanity actually come from off-world, and that we're a mix of different off-world beings, Lyrans and Andromedans and all that other stuff. What's your take on all of that?
The actual source of all life is God. That is my take, so to speak. Make this short and simple. That is the actual source of all life. So it does not matter if you came from another galaxy or came from another planet. Most people have a tendency to incarnate into the same, let us look at it this way, familial planet that they have incarnated into in the past. There may be changes, but paths of life are different on different planets. You project that on a different planet, things, you think some of them are going to be similar, but, and in a sense, they are, because all species as we know them to be have certain hierarchies of governments. You all know that, you know, a pride of lions has one major lion who is the dominant male in the pride, and he remains the dominant male until he is usurped by a younger, stronger male who comes. That there's a similar in herds of horses and zebras, that there is a leader who comes up. So in some ways, there are many things that are similar in that if you look across the animal kingdom and all different species within the world itself, you see that there is always the same reflections, that there is always some form of organization. There is always someone rising to the top in some way. There is a person always in charge, or a group of people in charge. You know, whether it is the queen bee who happily fertilizes all the eggs and all the things that are laid by all the drones that make everything, whether it is just a stallion or whether it is the top rat. It does not matter what it is. The strongest virus will dominate over the life systems that are there. So you see on this planet that there are many different species, and yet they are all different, and yet they are all the same. So when you look at other planets, there is not so much difference, but they often have, just as looking at the pride of lions is different than looking at the hive of honeybees. They are different governing ways of doing it. And what works for a pride of lions does not work for a hive of honeybees. So that when you are looking at different species on different planets, you might, it's very difficult for me to express. In some ways, it is so different from planet to planet that if you are incarnating on one planet and you are accumulating karma because that planet also has a free will system, and you get to choose what you wish to do, and you can make your decisions, it might be so so significantly different than life on Earth, there would be no reason for you to incarnate on Earth, because then you might incarnate as a lion or an ant or a honeybee or a plant, because life is different. And when you are in one planetary system, the way the life works may be enough significantly different that there would be no equivalent reason to incarnate on a different planet. So when you say that we are all come from the star seeds, I can only say we are all from God. And whether you are looking at the Andromeda galaxy and everything that is going on there with all the inhabited planets, and whether you choose to look at this Earth galaxy that we are in, where the Earth is part of the sun, which is part of the Milky Way, that this is a different galaxy, but they are all come from God. And as a result, it does not matter whether you choose to think of it as that we have been seeded by the stars, whether they were created first before ourselves, before our planet came to life with the life that we know and experience on this planet and that we do not see on any other planet in our solar system. It does not matter. It all comes from God. So I really have to say only that point. And you may maintain whatever belief you have. That is fine. If it is, if that is what you believe, that is fine. It is good. So, is there another question, or do you have a follow-up question, Robin?
I have a question.
Okay, good.
Hi, this is Jennifer.
Jennifer?
Hi. So this past year has been a bit of a roller coaster for me in different reasons. I'm wondering if you have any messages for me that the next 3, 4, maybe 5 months will bring me.
Well, I am not in I'm not here for the purpose of bringing messages to someone. So I will decline, well, I will demur on the answer. Just a moment, Jennifer. In general, when you were talking about the next 4 or 5 months, let me see, this is now June. And so that would take you into the fall time. There is likely to be a bit considerable unrest in general in what is happening in the United States. As you know, you are all beginning to open up. You are all finding your way as how to deal with and your governments are finding their way, and you are in a political situation. And so there will be lots of reviewing, things we'll be looking over for yourself as well as everyone else. I can only give you somewhat the astrological things that will be happening over the next 6 months or 4 months are all pretty much the same. That you will be thinking about things, everyone will be struggling to find a new place, a new way of being. And so when you say, if you were looking for an inspiring message on how to get beyond this, I can only say that you will be like everyone else in this United States, or like most people in the United States.
Well, I was just asking about what will happen in my life.
What will happen in your life?
Like not politics, not politics. I was asking about specifically myself.
I understand that. And I am not speaking just politics. Everyone will be struggling to find new places, new ways of thinking, new ways of behaving that is suitable for the new situations they will all find themselves in. You will not immediately go back to just whatever you have been experiencing. So this is an opportunity for you to create different things in your future than you have experienced in your past. And as if you wish to have a reading for yourself, then I suggest that you either participate in one of the psychic fairs that are offered at this church, or seek a reading from one of the ministers or someone else who can probably be of more help or service than I would do at this point in time, simply because this is not my purpose for being here, is not to give messages and not to give advice on how you specifically should act. Your actions are up to you. You have been given free will. It is a time of great difficulty for just about everyone at this time. Everyone is struggling in situations and uncertain, as you are. And you will need to simply think about what you want to accomplish and how you will accomplish it to make it manifest for yourself. That is how you live your life. That is how, I do not wish to say you should live your life, but you are a powerful individual because you have governance over your own decisions, what you think about, where you want to go, and how you can possibly get there. If you spend time questioning, how do I achieve this goal that I want in life? And it can't be, I don't want to experience what I went through 3 months ago. I don't want to experience this thing anymore. It has to be, where do you want to go? When you have a clear idea of what you would like to have happen, you can begin to figure out what are the best actions to take to achieve where you want to go. And so, you see, your future is not written. You are presently writing it through the ways you think, through the ways you act, the decisions you make. So when you ask me, I cannot answer that. One, because I do not do messages per se. And the other is because you have the free will and the power to create the future you want to have. You may not be able to create it in the next 3 months, but you may be able to start the journey and know that you are safely on the way to achieving what you want to achieve. And you have to be reasonable about it. It does not mean that you can't have the ambitions to do whatever you want. You could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be an engineer, you could be married if this is what you want. You could be single if this is what you want. You just have to decide what it is, and you will be started on your way, because there is always a way to achieve what you want. The problem usually lies that people do not want to do and take the actions that they need to take in order to achieve those goals. If you want to be a doctor, you know that there is going to be at least 8 years of studying. For you need a bachelor's degree, and then you need to get a medical degree, and then you have to go through internships and other studies to be a doctor the way that you want to be a doctor. It is a 10-year, 12-year journey, maybe longer. If you want to be an engineer, maybe it's less. It depends upon whatever you want. If you want to be a mother, there are ways to be a mother, but you may not want that, and you may not have the ability to achieve that easily without having a husband or having enough support and making enough money and figuring out how you are going to take care of the baby. There are so many details involved in that. So you have to decide what you want to achieve. And then it is possible for you to achieve that. It isn't a question of luck. It isn't a question of will things work out the way I want them to. No, it's a question of what decisions you make to attract to yourself and create for yourself the things that you want in your life. And so I'm sorry, I cannot answer your question as to what is coming, because it is all up to you, and you will determine what is coming. Are there any other questions?
I got one since you were talking about outer space. Since this existence is always existing all at the same time and so on and so forth, is there somewhere within that existence that the peoples, if you want to call them peoples, on all planets, will try to connect with one another? I mean, not just mentally, physically.
So you are wondering if somehow, well, in your science fiction stories, you all manage to connect with one another. If this is the goal for the people on this planet, to connect with people from other planets, it is possible that it will happen, but actions must be taken. Right now, I think you were planning merely to look at populating other planets and investigating other planets. So if we are talking in the future, is it possible that you will have a starship that can cross galaxies? It is possible, because I do not want to rule out anything as being impossible, because when minds decide that they want to achieve something, it usually happens.
Awesome. I know not in my lifetime, but that's okay.
Well, perhaps in another incarnation for yourself.
There you go.
Have that opportunity to be in a society which has already made those type of connections, but we will not, it is not really important to your current life.
Right. I had another one when you were talking about here, that we reincarnate. You said something about we create karma here, so it wouldn't do us, I guess, any good to go to another planet. Was that the idea? Because we created karma here, we should stay here and deal with it, so to speak?
No, that's not quite the reason why you wouldn't go to a different planet. You just may not have, the societies could be enough dissimilar that what you had created here, it simply would not matter. It is too diverse. I cannot explain it very well, but the life, I keep going back to the lives of the lions, the way a lion lives and what they have to do to feed themselves and procreate and keep themselves alive. That is, there is no karma involved in that. And so if you were to be moved into a society and take up a position that was somewhat similar, that there is no, that if you had decided that on this planet you had some karma, something you wanted to change, something you wanted to demonstrate, a knowledge you wanted to bring to the planet, a behavior you wanted to manifest within yourself, a knowledge and understanding, all these things play into karma and why one would come into an incarnation at a particular time and place. And so going to another planet, you would probably not be able to do that. And it is important to know that karma, while it rarely extends beyond a particular lifetime. And even though we say we come back because of karma, it's because of the lessons that we learned in a lifetime where we did something that was detrimental to ourselves, detrimental to others, that caused problems or unhappiness. And we see those when we do a life review, when you go into spirit and you do your life review. You see the areas in which you could have done better. where you could have been perhaps a better person, or you could have created better, or you could have been more helpful. There are just things that are different that you could have done, because you always have choices. And what if you made a different choice? Then life would have been different for yourself or for someone else. And it may have improved someone's life, or it may not have improved someone's life. It may have made someone's life harder. And so you decide to come back and you want to atone, so to speak, for some poor judgments that you made. And so you set up your life in such a way that you will have similar opportunities to make similar judgments. And the hope is that you will remember what you have already learned, that how to either avoid doing the same mistake, or how to make it better, or whatever it is you choose to do. The subject of karma is extremely interesting, and it is extremely complicated when you go between lives. In the same life, it is usually a direct result of actions and decisions you have made. Are there other questions?
Could I make a comment? Some of the questions asked by the two ladies about other planets, life on other planets, lives on other planets, beings from other planets that may show themselves here, may attend a particular individual. Dolores Cannon's many books deal with a lot of these subjects and have a lot of very interesting information and some answers to these questions that were being asked by these two ladies. One of the books, The Convoluted Universe, is very interesting, but through her work, I became quite familiar with some of these other beings from other planets that do appear to certain people for certain reasons, and familiar with the seeding of the earth, as the one lady was saying. But you might find it interesting to read some of her channeled works, or rather it was from people who were under hypnosis, and some of them had lived lives on other planets, and some had been put here by other races from other planets.
Repeat the name of the author and perhaps spell its last name for those individuals.
Yes, it's a woman, Dolores. I think it's Delores, Cannon, Canon.
So it is a simple name, and perhaps they will remember it and pursue their own reading for more information.
Yes, thank you so much.
You are most welcome. Thank you for your help.
Certainly.
Are there other questions?
Yes, you were talking, we'll go back to the karma thing again, or not just the karma, but the whole process you were talking about, how we, determine what we liked that we did and what we didn't like that we did. Does this process occur on other planets also?
I assume so. I cannot say because I have only been in this situation, and like attracts like, so that you realize that if the life on other planets would, not that they can be in a different place, but things are different. So it is, I am only familiar with this.
Oh, okay. All righty. Thank you.
Are there other questions? Perhaps we have run out of questions for the evening. Well, no one is speaking up. So then I will assume that it's time for me to say good night. It is nearing our end of our evening anyway. And so I give you all my blessings. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
I am back. It's Juana, and I always have to come in to say good night too. So it has been nice speaking to you. The medium will be back in just a moment. Remember, I love you all. Good night.
Good night.